All right, guys, what's going on? Welcome in. So obviously yesterday was a crazy day, right? Absolutely epic. To be honest, it was actually one of my favorite days ever making videos on the channel, hanging out with you guys. Just so much fun. And, you know, these moments don't happen every off season, right? Obviously, you don't have these one trade would have been big enough, right? Just Quinnen, just Gardner, you know, even if it was just something like Quinnen Williams or something, and we get like a late round pick. No, the Jets drastically altered their future, giving them extreme flexibility. But what they hit on yesterday was the gold standard of assets, which is first round picks. So let's dive into it, right? What did the Jets add? What did they lose? Let's talk about the players that the Jets added as well. Let's dive in. So overall, the New York Jets lost Sauce Gardner, Quinnen Williams, Michael Carter, and a 2027 7th round pick. They added a first round pick in this year's class in 2026, 2 first round picks in 2027, a 2026 second round pick, a 2027 6th round pick, wide receiver Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver John Mechie, and defensive tackle former first round pick Mazi Smith. And so we heard it in Darren Mougey's press conference yesterday where he said, you know, having this amount of draft ammo capital just gives the Jets so much flexibility, right? Not only like if you're talking about a rebuilding football team, what's the quickest way to do it? What do you covet the most? If you were a general manager, what do you want the most? 3rd round picks? 6th round picks? No, 1st round picks. You want 1st round picks. You want early dibs. You want to have that place in line with some of the top players in college football. Now, if you take a look at, and these are just rough numbers here, but I would say having top 50 picks are fantastic. Top 75 picks are really good. You probably want to get to like 105, but anything outside of like 105, 110, you're pretty much not, obviously in every single case, but that's where you're starting to look at like, okay, this is going to be like a developmental prospect. This is going to be maybe a special teams contributor, but there is going to be somewhat of a wait for these day 3 guys to develop. But in round 1, you know, unless you're talking developmental quarterback with like a high upside, you're not drafting, you know, a player and just letting them sit on the bench for 3 years at 16, at 18, at 22. It's just not in the cards, especially in this day and age where you have the NFL adopting so many college tendencies, as well as the college game providing the NFL with such high-level athletes. I mean, these guys are just so polished coming into league compared to what it was 20, 30 years ago. And so, again, the Jets added 3 of them, not to mention the 2 that we already have. One of these is, you know, it's going to be a high pick in this upcoming class anyway because the Jets are a 1-7 football team. We'll, of course, see what happens as the season goes on here, but you got to imagine that at the least it's going to be a top 10 pick. So we have five first-round picks over the next 2 years. In my opinion, that is 5 starters. I'm not drafting players in the first round that are going to be backups. Now, of course, it doesn't work out all the time. Look at Joe Douglas. Look at John Idzik. I mean, we could take a look at other teams. Like, drafting busts is a real thing. Sometimes that's on the team, sometimes that's on the players, sometimes it's a combination of both. But in my mind, if I'm Darren Mougey, I have 5 first-round picks. Yeah, that's 5 starters. And another really cool thing about adding premium draft capital from the team that's acquiring them, not only are you know, the hope is you're getting a talented player coming out of college, but you're also going to be getting a cheap, controllable player for 5 years. Think about every good player in the league right now that's on a rookie deal. Malik Neighbor, like you could just go down the list of how many contributors, whether it's a rotational player, whether it's a starter, whether it's a superstar, rookie deals are in a league where teams typically overpay players. Rookie deals are amazing for the cap, right? When you can especially get these guys being like a functional contributor. It's almost like mind-blowing to see sometimes. You're like, this player's getting paid how much? Oh, okay, yeah, he's just still on the rookie deal. You know, so you have 5 new rookie deals coming in the building, assuming you make all these draft picks. And that leads me to the next point, which is having these first-round picks, it gives you, in the words of Darren Mougey, again, flexibility, right? Maybe we use 3 of them, and we trade the other 2 to add like proven vets. Maybe we package them together to shoot up to the top of the draft one year. Anything can happen. Maybe we stick and pick at every spot and slowly but surely build the team up over the next 2 years. And all of a sudden, this roster could look a lot different with a lot of first rounders chalked into it. Now, of course, there are some questions with, when you have so many first round picks in one draft class, you eventually have to pay all those players pretty much at the same time. Look at Sauce Gardner, look at Garrett Wilson. Jermaine Johnson was also in that class. Breece Hall was also in that class. Joe Douglas back in 2022, I believe. Point is, how much of a discussion was the Garrett Wilson extension? How much of a discussion was the Sauce Gardner extension and re-signing Breece and what's going to happen with Jermaine? Like, there's a lot of focus on that because they were all in the same class and they were all relatively high picks. So they're all hitting free agency right around the same time. So as a general manager, you're like, we better have the cap space to do this or, pull something else out, which is what happened yesterday. So the bottom line is the New York Jets have way more flexibility. The future looks way, way brighter with this draft capital, in my opinion. Because, another thing too to mention, you're looking at typical NFL trade deadlines. You don't see first round picks getting moved. I mean, even in the offseason, like, teams do not want to give up first round picks, right? Even in the Michael Parsons trade, Parsons, you can argue, is the best defensive player in football. I wouldn't go that far, but he is a true game changer, true game wrecker, and he's a pass rusher, premium position. He could rush from different angles and whatnot. Great edge setter. What did he go for? 2 firsts and Kenny Clark. The Jets traded Sauce Gardner, who is not the number one corner in football. He has a couple red flags, and he's the highest paid corner in football. Of course, that doesn't kick in until after the rookie year, but it's still going to kick in at some point. We move him to the Colts and get 2 firsts and a wide receiver. Granted, I don't want to say, Mitchell and Kenny Clark are on the same level here. Obviously not. Kenny Clark was an established NFL veteran who we've seen some great play from. And Mitchell is completely unproven up to this point. But we're going to talk about Mitchell in a second. The point is, the deals are relatively close. They're not 1-to-1. I get that. But I really feel like the Jets made out well with adding those 2 firsts from Indianapolis here. Then you, of course, look at the Quinnen Williams trade. Now, when I was talking about the Quinnen Williams trade, like in the days leading up to it, days leading up to the deadline, my suggestion was I don't want to trade Q. If we do, I want a first and something. First gets you in the door, and that second contributing piece will close it. Well, the Jets had 3. The Jets got 3 assets back in return, and 1 is a question mark for sure, but they got that first round pick. Awesome. They added a second round pick in this year's class. That could be big time, right? That could be another wide receiver. That could be your rotational edge. That could be, a safety. Take your pick on whoever you want. And the Jets don't have a third round pick. Something to monitor there, right? And I know it's just a third round pick here, but you look at this class, there are some pretty good, some pretty talented players that the Jets could have targeted in the third round. But thankfully, we do have the 2 twos. So, we can go add another potential starter in that second round, which gives us an awesome opportunity to go add another premium player. Now, what's the next best thing next to first round picks? Second round picks. And we secured one. We had the pick swap with the Eagles, right? We give up a 7th, but we get a 6th back in return. So we've seen Darren Mougey be pretty active with the whole pick swap thing. Jarvis Brown-Lee, Harrison Phillips, Juwan Briggs, some pick swaps in there. I fully expect him. And also, for what it's worth, there's other GMs around football that really seem to be utilizing these pick swaps. I don't really remember these pick swaps being a thing all that much when I was younger. But it seems like pretty relevant now. But let's focus in on the 2 players that we acquired yesterday. Let's start. Oh man, who should we start with? Let's go with Adonai Mitchell, right? Wide receiver out of Texas at the time, who was considered a first-round pick. Let me actually go back and look at some mock drafts, like coming out the day of the draft or the week of the draft, and just show you where people thought, like I'm talking Daniel Jeremiah and Peter Schrager and Mel Kiper, where these guys thought AD Mitchell was going to be. And keep in mind, this is a year and a half ago. This is not 5 years ago. This is not 10 years ago, where it's like, oh, Clean Farrell was a first-round pick, former first. No, this is a year and a half ago. Mitchell is 23 years old. 23 years old. And if we think back to Mitchell coming out as a prospect, he was this physical man. Like, he had so much speed. He ran what, a 4.34 40. He was a true downfield threat. He would win all the time at jump balls, right? 50-50 balls. He was all over the place. A big play machine, kind of this lightning rod at the wide receiver position. Very, very intriguing. Someone who put together a fantastic season for Texas, super productive. It was funny. It was him and Xavier Worthy, kind of the two wide receivers that there was a lot of focus on. And the hope was Worthy was going to really be that number one option before that season actually started, but it didn't really pan out that way. And it was actually Mitchell that ended up taking over that top spot, which is really cool. But if you, again, like, he was projected to the Bills and to the Lions and to Kansas City with that 32nd pick. I felt like countless times throughout the draft process. But of course, he did have some negatives coming out. I remember one, which was he was not considered a good blocker at the wide receiver position. Another con was route running. It wasn't horrible, but it was a concern. Like, is this guy going to be a silky smooth route runner? If not, that's okay. It's not the end of the world, but it's just not something that we're going to be, building into the offense. And so the framework with Mitchell was he's probably going to be a steady wide receiver too at the next level, right? He can win jump balls. He can hurt teams down the field. He can come up with contested catches. He can work on the sidelines. I really liked Mitchell's ability to do like a toe tap on the sidelines, whether it was in the end zone or, of course, in the in the field of play. Wide receiver too. And so if we look at his tenure with the Colts, it was a strange team to get drafted to because they had Michael Pittman, they had Alec Pierce, they had Jonathan Taylor. It wasn't like Mitchell was going to be stepping into a role where he was going to be receiving a lot of volume. It was almost like wide receiver 3, wide receiver 4. Like, that's the role you're going to be with this team because, again, Pittman, Pierce, these guys are all young. So strange kind of fit, but he slipped in the draft. And when the Colts grabbed him, it was like, whoa, you're getting a first-round talent here. Everyone had this guy going in round 1. Let's just bite the bullet and take him and worry about it later. And there were high hopes from a couple Colts fans that I talked to, with Mitchell, but it never really happened. So he was drafted into a team where he wasn't really getting a ton of opportunities. There was that quarterback question mark with Richardson as far as overall accuracy is concerned. But, let's not be, homers here and just blame the team. Oh, Mitchell's amazing, but the team sucks. No, there were mental lapses. There was a bit of a drop concern with Mitchell. There were moments where you just felt like, or the reports that were coming out, it was like, is he 100% all in all the time? Not so much with like winning and playing football, but more so just on like a given route. He actually had a Malachi Corley moment where he dropped the football before entering the end zone. He's made some incredible plays, but he's had some head scratchers. So, through the first year and a half, there's been more bad than good. But I think really the point is here, hey, he's 23 years old, still has a lot of potential, still has a lot of speed, and he's going to a team that is simply horrible at the wide receiver position. Outside of Garrett, of course. I think Mitchell should get a lot of action, a lot of volume for the remainder of the season. I don't really think Cleveland is going to be like a fair assessment because the guy just got here. But after Cleveland, yeah, I want to see AD Mitchell out there a lot. I want the quarterback to throw his way a lot. That's just me though. 6'2", 200 plus pounds. Yeah, I want him out there. And something else to make a note of, it came out yesterday that Darren Mougey was pushing for Mitchell, right? So the Jets get this great offer for Gardner, but the Colts didn't necessarily want to give up on Mitchell. They didn't want to throw him in, but Darren Mougey basically kept pushing for it. Like, we want this guy. So there's a plan there. There's an upside. There is a pathway for him to play. I like it, man. I really, really do. I love taking swings on players that maybe they didn't work out in their first destination. But, I mean, in this case, he's only a year and a half in. Jarvis Brownlee was only a year in when we scooped him up. So, same draft class. same draft class. So really, really cool to be adding a player like this. In the case of Mazi Smith, D tackle from Michigan, another interesting player. Personally, I viewed him as a second rounder coming out, but he ends up going in round 1 at Dallas. And Smith was really interesting because I remember there were a bunch of like draft insiders who loved Mazi Smith because of the upside. 6'3", 337. He had a 33-inch vertical, 22 reps on the bench, and typically that number's at 225. For NFL Combine standards, Mazi Smith had 22 reps at 325, which is crazy to think about. Matched with the vert, he ran I think a 4.8 140, again at 337 pounds, and his shuttle time I think was a 4.41 shuttle. That at the time was the fastest shuttle time in the last 10 years for a defensive tackle that weighed over 310 pounds. Just nuts to think about. And it starts getting really cool when you're starting to add those, right? The 40 time, the shuttle time, again, the vertical, and then you watch what he did at Michigan, and he was someone who can really hold his own. He was never, in my opinion, someone who would get like shoved backwards or physically manhandled. He would clog lanes really, really well. And another big thing with Smith that a lot of people liked, a lot of people kept mentioning at the time, was quickness, right? Quickness off the ball, quickness as a pass rusher, given the size. And he was also listed as like a scheme versatile type of player, right? He can hold the nose, the zero tech in a 3-4. You could play him in a 4-3. As a traditional D tackle. Like, he was just kind of this versatile, flexible player with just immense upside from a physical standpoint, and he had the size to be almost this high floor player, but he hasn't really worked out up to this point. Now, he does have a lot of experience. He wasn't picked in last year's class, the season prior, but he was drafted to really help stop the run, be this physical presence, this strong presence in the middle of the Dallas defensive line, and it just never really happened. And yes, he played in a lot of games, he started in a lot of games, but personally it just felt like the translation from college to the NFL was just maybe a little bigger than what people expected. Now, I know there is a subset of Cowboys fans that are like, hey, this has been a position of need for such a long time, and the Cowboys have struggled in this area for such a long time that when they just simply drafted Mazi Smith, it was like, okay, please save this entire unit. And he wasn't doing that. And so it was almost like fan expectations were up here. And again, he had a lot of buzz pre-draft from like specific draft insiders that loved him. So maybe that kind of elevated the expectation, and he just wasn't meeting it. So the optics were like, okay, this guy is a massive bust. There's some bad play there, but his expectations were up here, and he's not even nowhere close to being this like one-man wrecking crew. So I don't know if maybe that has something to do with it. He also went through multiple defensive coaches. I think it was Dan Quinn, then Mike Zimmer, and now Eberflus. So hopefully with the Jets here, he gets... I do think he's going to get opportunities, right? I don't feel like the Jets would have acquired him if they didn't, like him as a prospect, like the upside. And one thing that I absolutely love about Darren Mougey and Aaron Glenn so far, these young players that they're bringing in, Membu, Mason Taylor, Malachi Moore, Francisco Mawanoa, out of the draft. We'll see what happens with AZ Thomas. Now being elevated to become a starter now. I'm really pumped for him. But in the case of Jarvis Brownlee and Juwan Briggs, two players that they added in with pick swaps, both of those guys were, they are playing the best ball of their career so far. So again, for me, I always like taking these swings on high upside players. Maybe they didn't work out for whatever reason. Maybe it's their fault. Maybe it's the team. Maybe it's the system. Maybe it's the coaches. Maybe it's the players around them. Whatever it is. I do like taking swings when I can on former first, former second round picks, guys with higher upsides, because you never know who's going to pop. This is an extreme example, but like, look at Sam Darnold with the Seahawks, right? Like, you never know what could happen when you take on a high potential player, a high ceiling player, get them in the right system and watch them work. They were not, like the draft 2020 vision is just, or, the hindsight with draft prospects is just crazy, right? The revisionist history is just mind-blowing, right? Like, if a player doesn't work out, it's just like it feels like from like a national perspective, it just tries to get like covered up, like, oh no one really thought this way, everyone knew it was not gonna work out. But there's a reason why. There's a reason why these guys are first-round picks. And there's also a reason why they're so damn dominant at the college game. So I'm not saying that any of these guys are going to work out, John Mechie included, but they're young, they're controllable, they're coming in at positions of need, and they're going to be given an opportunity. And so far, with what we've seen from Darren Mougey and Aaron Glenn, the young players seem to be working out. So let me know your thoughts down below in the comment section. We got this, cool crop of young players, plus this draft haul. Let's freaking go. And in regards to Sauce and Quinnen and Michael Carter, I hope they absolutely dominate. When I saw that Quinnen Williams trade, I'm like, this is like me saying goodbye to a friend who's moving out to Dallas. I'm like, it's been real, man. I'm gonna be pulling for you. I hope you do well. But it definitely stung. I was shocked when we traded Quinnen. But again, I am really, really happy with the return. So yeah, thanks so much for watching, and as always, go Jets.